Head of state and governments gather in Tegucigalpa for an historic summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, to strengthen ties of integration. The Dominican Republic has declared 3 days of national mourning after the collapse of a nightclub roof in the nation's capital, claiming life of at least 124 people. And China's Ministry of Commerce said on Wednesday that the country has filed a lawsuit against the U.S. with the World Trade Organization following the latest U.S. tariff hikes. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. Honduras has the head of state and government of the 9th Summit of the Community of Latin American Caribbean States to address economic and social solutions in the face of the crisis caused by capitalism. With the presence of the President of Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Uruguay, Cuba, and Honduras, the meeting takes place in the midst of the tariff war declared by the President of the U.S., Donald Trump. In addition, the presidents will build an agenda to face global challenges such as the trade war. Likewise, during the day, the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, is expected to hand over the pro tempore presidency of the bloc to her Colombian counterpart, Gustavo Petro. President Xiomara Castro stressed the need for the countries of the region to build a future together in the face of new global realities.
Presidents, we cannot continue to walk apart when the world is reorganizing itself without us. But neither can we unite by repeating the recipes of failure, the neoliberal model, promoted by the Washington Consensus in the 90s, predatory and exclusive, has emptied our economies, indebted our countries, concentrated capital in a few hands, and privatized public services. Concentrating through its form nature, which should not continue to be the spoils of capital.
The Honduran head of state announced that in the midst of the massive deportation of migrants by the U.S., CELAC must be respected.
Our young people have become migrants who, seeking the American dream, today are massively expelled from the United States. In the face of this challenge, CELAC must be respected as a zone of peace. This commitment against war and in favor of peace has to be ratified, this day, in this assembly.
The Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of our America's People's Trade Treaty, ALBA TCP, issued a communique on Wednesday supporting the commitment to peace, dialogue, and unity in Latin American Caribbean of the ongoing 9th CELAC Summit. The statement by the regional bloc reads, "This 2025 comes at a time of very particular strategic definitions and challenges which summons the people of the continent to return to the path of unity as a real hope for the future and as a regional sovereign winner that aims at a change in the balance of global power." It continues by warning that the peace, stability, and security of nations are threatened by aggressions, destabilization attempts, lies, unilateral coercive measures, tariff pressures, and unconventional and communicational wars. Furthermore, the communique stressed that inspired by the undeniable morality characterized of Alba for 20 years now, its members countries seize this special occasion during the ninth CELAC to unequivocally raise their voices in defense of the founding motto of this unitary forum of all our America, the pursuit of unity within diversity. It follows by the underscoring. Alba makes a clear call to consolidate in a peremptory and unstoppable manner the unity of Latin America and the Caribbean without resorting to the ideological basis or the all-power patterns based on the inexorable commitment to preserve the sacred dignity of free people of region from Rio Bravo to Patagonia. The communique by the bloc closes by stating, the member countries of the Bolivarian Alliance also affirm their complete and strengthened adherence to the proclamation of Latin America and Caribbean as a zone of peace, which is today renewed, relevant, and pertinent. In Venezuela, the families of the more than 200 migrants kidnapped in El Salvador once again demand the immediate release of their loved ones. The families of the victims gathered in front of the United Nations headquarters in Caracas to ask the international organization to mediate with the government of Nayib Bukele for their repatriation. In a shout of freedom for their relatives and carrying banners with their photographs, those present who came from all parts of the country handed over a letter in which they demand that the UN leads the way for justice to be done and for them to be returned. The more than 250 Venezuelans who were arbitrarily transferred to El Salvador have been held in a maximum security prison for 24 days without having committed any crime nor having been gathered right to defense. The Venezuelan government issued an official statement on Wednesday rejecting previous statements made by Guyana after the unveil of a false flag plan in complicity with the U.S. to attack the ExxonMobil platform. The communique starts with affirming that Venezuela categorically rejects the communique issued by Guyana on the occasion of the communication sent by Venezuela to the Secretary General of the UN. Guyana continues with its desperate and irresponsible attempt to distort and disregard the legally binding obligations assumed with the signing of the Geneva Agreement of 1966. It followed by stating that Guyana not only sabotaged the good offices process developed by the UN Secretary General in accordance with the Geneva Agreement, but also exerted undue and illegitimate pressure on the General Secretariat so that a dispute was regularly referred to the International Court of Justice in violation of the UN Charter itself, thanks to the lobbying and financial support of ExxonMobil. The statement continues by asserting that Venezuela ratifies the International Court of Justice has not jurisdiction to hear the Guyana's unilateral claim of the validity of the 1899 arbitral award. Faithful to its historical position, Venezuela will never recognize any decision emanating from that instance of a territorial dispute over the Essequibo. This position has been overwhelmingly ratified by the Venezuelan people in the consultative referendum held in December 3, 2023. It closes by stressing that Venezuela demands that Guyana cease its campaign of lies and strictly comply with the Geneva Agreement as the only valid path to a definitive, peaceful, and satisfactory solution for both parties over the territory of the Guyana Essequibo, recalling that the sun of Venezuela rises in the Essequibo. In Argentina, mobilizations are called to support Thursday's general strike against the far right-wing government of Javier Milei. In this regard, the Confederation of Labor announced that all the trade union centers of the country will adhere to the April 10th strike, while actions will be started on a Wednesday to accompany the retirees' march. Let's take a very first break, but remember you can join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back from the south. The Dominican Republic has declared a 3 days of national mourning after the collapse of a nightclub roof in the nation's capital claimed the life of at least 124 people. The most recent briefing by the director of the Emergency Operations Center, Juan Manuel Mendez, confirmed that the rising death toll, as well as the passing of merengue singer Ruby Perez, whose body was taken out earlier on Wednesday morning. The incident, which also caused the death of Montecristi's governor Nancy Milagro Cruz Martinez, has led to the suspension of many official, legislative, and political activities in solidarity with the victims and their families. In this context, while addressing the press, the director of the Emergency Operations Center, Juan Manuel Mendez, indicated that are still 24 to 36 hours of search work left, and he does not rule out a possibility of finding survivors under the rubble. All national emergency resources and institutions have been mobilized to assist in the search that has the support of 300 Dominican brigades and 12 Puerto Rican ones. In addition, the country's health ministry announced the creation of a commission to provide psychological assistance to survivors and their relatives to cope with the emotional impact of the incident. The candidates for the presidency of Ecuador have intensified their public activities 1 day after the closing of campaign after the second round of elections to take place on Sunday, April 13. In the last day, the presidential candidate for the Citizens Revolutionary Party, Luisa Gonzalez, closed activities in Cuenca, where she proposed to work together with local governments, strengthen infrastructures, and the creation of employment, social balance, and security. While the president and candidate for re-election, Daniel Noboa, completed a caravan that began at the terrestrial terminal to the Central Park of Cuenca, where he seeks to capture votes in spite of the negligence of his government. This Sunday, the Association of Haitian Journalists denounced that the disappearance of 2 journalists in the city of Mirabellas aims great armed violence. The victims are the former correspondent of The Voice of America, Jean Christopher Colleague, and Radio Jean reporter Israel Roger de Claudie. The latter was abducted by armed groups along with his brother. The International Federation of Journalists expressed its rejection and concern at this situation and demanded an end to the hostilities against the press. China announced on Wednesday a retaliatory adjustments to its tariff rates on U.S. goods following Donald Trump's recent measures against the Asian nation. According to the Chinese Finance Ministry, the tariff will increase from 34 to 84% as of next April 10. The government body describes Washington's actions as a mistake and a violation of the rights and interests of the country, undermining the multilateral trade system. On the other hand, Beijing used Trump's administration to revise the measures right away, which it considers are being implemented to exert pressure on the Asian nation. The U.S. President evicted on Wednesday the true intention behind the so-called reciprocal tariff by passing the levies on all countries except China. Through a post on the Truth Social, Trump announced that he will be raising the tariff charged to China by the U.S. to 125%, effective immediately, adding he had authorized a 90-day pause and a lower reciprocal tariff during this period of 10% to remain in countries, also effective immediately. The move has reportedly highlighted U.S. government true intentions to narrow the trade war to China. In this context, China Ministry of Commerce said on Wednesday that the country has filed a lawsuit against the U.S. with the World Trade Organization dispute settlement mechanism following the latest U.S. tariff hikes. The action comes after the U.S. move to increase its so-called reciprocal tariff on Chinese products exported to the U.S. by 125%. In this regard, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Commerce announced on Wednesday that the tariff measure of the U.S. seriously violated the rule of the WTO and that the tariff increases is a grave mistake, which highlights the unilateral bullying nature of the U.S. actions. Let's take a last break, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on our most recent events. In financial break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli forces have carried out a series of attacks against the Strip in the last 24 hours, the most lethal being recorded in Al-Suhiyya and Al-Mawasi. The occupation forces attacked this Wednesday a residential building in Al-Suhiyya, which is preliminary data of the rescue forces estimates between the wounded and the missing there will be almost 500 people. The spokesman of the Civil Defense Agency, Muhammad Basal, assured that only in that building there are more than 20 deaths and 4 wounded. Furthermore, another genocidal attack against them in Al-Mawasi caused the death of 6 people. 3 of them were children, but the authorities affirmed that the number could increase. The Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Antonio Guterres, assured that no humanitarian aid has entered the Gaza Strip for 31 days. Far from denying it, some representatives of the genocidal government, such as Basil Smotrich, in charge of Israeli finance, ratified that not a single grain of water will enter Gaza. The confession of a war crime has gone unnoticed by the West, but not by humanitarian rights organizations that ratify that collective punishments and the imposition of starvation are war crimes and crimes against humanity. Russia intercepted and destroyed more than 150 Ukrainian drones intended to be exploited in the territory in a massive attack. In this way, the Russian Defense Ministry informed that its air defense systems had destroyed a total of 158 Ukrainian drones between Tuesday night and early on Wednesday morning. Most of the unmanned aerial vehicles were neutralized in the south of the country, where the 67 drones were shot down in the Krasnodar region and 29 in the Rostov province. The government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo reported that the death toll from torrential rains in the capital Kinshasa has risen to 43. The Ministry of Interior, Security and Decentralization confirms that in addition to the fatalities, 46 people have been hospitalized and the number of displaced persons is approaching 3,000. Meanwhile, authorities are working to restore water and electricity service in the city. In this context, the government has appealed to the population to avoid traveling near the affected areas due to risk of drowning, electrocution, or the contamination. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.